Hello and welcome to the MatchDay Review Podcast instant replay of the Community Shield. The traditional English curtain raiser has just finished 1-1 in normal time, but Arsenal ends up winning 5-4 on penalties against Liverpool. As always, I'm joined by Lewis to go over the game. And Lewis, it was a weird game in the sense that usually the Community Shield is kind of this great comeback into football, but it seems a bit strange this year in that the season only finished less than a week ago.
Yeah, it had a really weird atmosphere about the game. I still think it was a competitive game. We'll get into that more as we go into the podcast. But I feel as though, like you say, it didn't have that special sauce that the Community Shield usually has, that you'd have the first chance to see new players at big teams, be it Manchester City, Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester United or Liverpool, who are usually the teams who contest the Community Shield. But there was no new players really on show today. It felt as though it was just a continuation of the end of the season slog, where teams don't look fit enough, they're very leggy, there isn't that pop in the play, there isn't that intensity in both teams, which you can understand in a Community Shield normally because it's a curtain raiser for a season, it's the end of your pre-season campaign, but this, it felt really off, is the best way I can put it.
Yeah, I think usually the Community Shield, it gets a bit of stick in that people aren't quite sure what it really is. Is it, you've got some like Jose Mourinho who think it's a trophy that's worth winning. You've got some people that think it's just another glorified pre-season friendly at Wembley. Obviously, it's the curtain raiser for the season, so it kind of sits in a strange place anyway. But I would stick up for the Community Shield in the sense that, kind of echoing what you said, in that most of the time you've had a month and a half, 2 months away from football. Especially if there's no international football, it kind of has this feel about it. It's usually quite sunny. There's new kits on show, new players on show. Everything feels fresh. Whereas today, it kind of felt like, there's more football.
It felt stale.
Yeah, it was just another football game in the sense that the Champions League final was less than a week ago.
I think it also struggled with the fact that Arsenal are kind of formulaic in the way they play under Mikel Arteta, a lot more organised and a lot more combative than they were under previous managers, particularly Unai Emery. And this Liverpool team as well is formulaic. You know what you're going to get from them. Granted, they're very good, especially with the wingers Mane and Salah. But you don't feel as though there's going to be any surprise with both of these teams. There's no excitement with both of the teams. And I think the fact it ended 1-1 proves that.
Yeah, speaking of Arsenal then, and the first point I want to raise isn't necessarily about the game, it's about unnecessary away kits. We've seen it creep into the Premier League more so that teams are wearing unnecessary away kits when their home kit doesn't match. But when you are the home team and you're wearing your away kit, that is the definition of unnecessary away kits, and I hope it's not a trend we see going forward because that's ridiculous. But anyway, the game...
It is absolutely ridiculous, and I agree with you. It was like Arsenal the home team in the Community Shield, Liverpool away team, but Liverpool are playing in the usual red strip and Arsenal are playing in the Raspberry Ripple ice cream away kit. It was a weird one.
It's very rugby union for me.
Yeah, and that's another thing that left a bit of a bad taste in my mouth because you feel as though it was an excuse to show the new kit as an advertisement for some of the fair weather fans that are going to jump at the chance of getting the away kit for Arsenal. And it again feels as though it's that encroachment of commercialisation into English football, which the way it's going and the pace it's rapidly enhancing and rapidly flying through the game, and it wouldn't surprise me come the end of October, November if there's a McDonald's advert for each VAR pause that we have in the game. And I just feel as though it's becoming tacky English football with the amount of advertisements and, like I say, unnecessary things that clubs are doing, like playing in your away kit as a home team in a Charity Shield.
Yeah, it seems a bit strange, but moving away from the kit and onto the field and what actually happened, I actually thought that Arsenal impressed me in this game, especially for 70 minutes or so. They looked organised, they looked good on the counter-attack. They had a plan, which isn't always what you could have said about Arsenal, particularly a year ago under Unai Emery. They've definitely gone places under Arteta, and I think that was really highlighted today.
Yeah, it felt very structured, it felt very organised. It felt as though a team who knew exactly what they needed to do to win this game today, like you say, for 75 minutes. But the thing that impressed me the most was Arsenal teams that are past, if they concede a goal, especially a scrappy goal against a runner player like Minamino's was, would fold and start panicking, the cracks would appear and then they'd fall apart, whereas this Arsenal team today did the most un-Arsenal thing, which was recompose themselves and get a foothold back in a game, and actually were on the front foot going into the last 5 or 10 minutes, and Joe Willett really should have put the cherry on top with that and headed the ball in the back of the net on the 86-minute mark. And it was so strange to see an Arsenal team that could recompose themselves, an Arsenal team that didn't panic at the back. And it felt as though this again was just another step in the right direction for Mikel Arteta's project at the Emirates.
Yeah, and I think one man obviously who's key to the way Arsenal play, and it goes without saying, is Pierre Emerick Aubameyang, who is yet to sign that new contract despite rumblings on social media, so to speak. But obviously Liverpool had that goal that's allowed early on, and then for Aubameyang's goal, it was a lovely quick piece of play from a goal kick from Arsenal. It was unusual. This must be the first time I've ever seen them score from a goal kick that they kept inside their own box. You know, last year, you go back to the game against Watford where they kept on getting caught out every single time. They take a goal kick and they do this new, you're allowed to keep it inside the box and whatever. They do that, they get caught out and they draw against Watford or lose against Watford, something like that. But this time, they kind of, like you said, they were composed. They kept their head. They passed it around Liverpool's press. And then in Aubameyang up front, they've got probably the most clinical finisher in the Premier League at the moment, who took his chance fantastically. I
think the Aubameyang goal emphasises how direct Arsenal were today and how direct Arsenal have been under Mikel Arteta, particularly going forward. I think they were so incisive on a counter-attack. And this goal in particular, like you say, Arsenal of old could have been accused of trying to play total football in their own 18-yard area, especially from goal kicks. And today it was a case of, okay, we'll play it from the back, look fancy, but then there'll be a bit of an end product with it because there's some snap in the passing. The passing's always direct and it's always forward and always looking to progress the play. And I was so impressed with just the switch of play because it particularly went to the left-hand side after the goal kick, came over then to Bakary Saka, and the ball Saka played into Aubameyang was an absolute peach. And then you leave it to Pierre Emerick Aubameyang to do the rest, and it was an absolute wonder strike from arguably the most clinical centre-forward in the Premier League today.
Yeah, he was helped out a bit, wasn't he, by young Neco Williams, who he got himself a bit lost out there in the right back position. I think he had a bit of a torrid time while he was on the pitch, but particularly for his goal, he got himself a bit tangled up.
Yeah, he got dragged too far infield, which left Aubameyang with so much space on the touchline out there when he got into possession. And it was kind of a calamitous series of events that he never recovered from. It was the fact he left too much space and he tried to close down but didn't commit himself to the challenge. Aubameyang then pushed him back and he got a bit tied in knots, like you say, got squared up and then really had no hope in hell of stopping Aubameyang, whether he was going to go past him or ultimately, like he did, put the ball in the top corner with a great finish.
Yeah, I think what was unusual then, from what I've seen from Arsenal for a year, 2 years, in fact probably going back 7 years, was that they held on to this lead for, well, better part of 50 minutes, so to speak, against a Liverpool side that, alright, it wasn't particularly at the races today, but it still was a very strong starting 11. They still played alright. They applied the pressure, but they realised there came kind of almost uncharacteristic sloppiness at the back from Arsenal for the day. Yeah. In that it's unusual to say that.
It was strange to see Arsenal be so compact and be so astute, particularly when in possession with Granit Xhaka and Mohamed El Neni, because them two impressed me today, considering I wrote them off about 6 months ago as never being good enough to pull a shirt on in the Premier League. But you just felt as though they were authoritarian in central midfield, never under any real pressure, and they could always distribute the ball well throughout midfield and, like I said, progress it towards the forwards. What struck me today was Liverpool lacked a lot of creativity going forward. I don't know about you and I don't know about the listeners, but I'll go back to that word stale. Liverpool felt stale today. They felt as though they were never really going to cut Arsenal open. They were never going to create clear-cut chances. Granted, Mane had a couple, and Emiliano Martinez in net for Arsenal was phenomenal, making himself big, closing down. Mane went on one-on-ones, never looked like he was going to concede in those situations. But it comes back again to this Liverpool team who lack creativity in the number 10 position and kind of struggle if they don't catch the opposition at counter-attack. And Arsenal kind of played that well today because he sat with a lot deeper line than you would have expected.
Yeah, I think you say that they struggle with creativity in the 10, and they have done for, well, a number of two years or so now. A lot of their creativity comes from their fullbacks, isn't it? Alexander-Arnold on the right and Robertson on the left. Obviously, Alexander-Arnold wasn't playing today.
Big miss.
So I feel like it's probably the most influential player from right back, which is strange, but I guess we're kind of all getting used to that now because of how good he's been for the last year or so. And Robertson, he put some balls into the box, 11. And they had some chances from crosses. Oh, he put a few balls in the box, more than just some. But you could see that it's Liverpool's game plan. It has been for ages. Everyone knows what they're going to do. It's another thing stopping it, I suppose. And maybe that delivery from the right hand side with Alexander-Arnold was missing today. We mentioned it a lot in game, actually, that with Roberto Firmino being this unconventional defensive centre forward, which of course that's not a real position. Let's just put it out there. If they had a proper number 9, a lot more of these crosses would be successful. Yeah,
that's the point I was going to make. Is Liverpool never really put Arsenal in any danger with these balls going into the box because Firmino was either on the edge of the 18-yard area or he didn't have the physical capabilities to challenge the Arsenal back centre halves, particularly David Luiz, who I thought played very well today. And Liverpool are going to struggle if that's the best they've got in Firmino because he offers you nothing going forward, which is the most ridiculous thing to say about a centre forward. But like you say, he's got this moniker of a defensive striker, which is just bullshit coming from the Liverpool TV gang at Sky Sports. But you're not going to get anything from these crosses into the box if you know full well the opposition's number 9 is nowhere to be seen around the 6-yard area.
Yeah, I think Arsenal played a back 3, packing that box tight. They were ready for everything that came in.
Yeah, I take that on board, but never once did I ever see Roberto Firmino challenge for a header in the air.
Oh no,
he was always just on his he was on his heels in the middle of the centre halves, and you couldn't imagine whether it was a Zlatan Ibrahimovic or a Harry Kane, players of this ilk, would always be challenging the players. And Didier Drogba's the one I always come to, would be challenging the centre halves on balls that good that the centre halves would undoubtedly make a mistake over 90 minutes because of the pressure coming from the striker. Whereas with Firmino today, there was little to no pressure, and it was kind of a pipe and slippers job for the back 3 of Arsenal.
Yeah, and it's a really criticism that has kind of been thrown at Firmino a lot, that he doesn't score enough goals, especially for a centre forward and kind of the style he plays. If you speak to Liverpool fans, they'll argue till they're blue in the face that he does a lot more for the team. But you can't help but feel if you are a number 9, your one task is put the ball in the back of the net. And I know he drops back and he works hard, but they've got such a almost industrial midfield that works incredibly hard, the likes of Fabinho, when Wijnaldum doesn't stop running, James Milner. You'd have thought that they can do the running and the pressing. Maybe you could sacrifice a little bit of that up top with Firmino to have an actual number 9 in there to get on the end of the crosses from the likes of Alexander-Arnold or Robertson, rather than, as we saw today, a lot of them going over the middle because Firmino's not there. And it comes to Mane on the edge of the box, or even as far out as Robertson, to just put the same ball back in again from the side, and you get the same result over and over again.
Yeah, because there's none of the midfield from Liverpool today were gambling and arriving late in a box, which we've known throughout history of the Premier League is a way that you can score a lot of goals. Frank Lampard did it, Paul Scholes did it, famously. And Liverpool don't have that in the squad either, of someone who's willing to gamble and have a shot from 20 yards coming onto a ball that's been cut back. And I said it, that it's formulaic, Liverpool. And I'm hurting as a Manchester United fan today watching that, because you feel as though they've gone backwards. And I felt like that since they lost to Watford 3-0 at Vicarage Road. just after Christmas. And you feel as though there's issues with this Liverpool team. Teams are working them out, sit deep, let them have as much ball as you want across the central midfield three. And as long as you keep Mane quiet and you keep Salah quiet, what I thought was awful today, then they're not going to carry much of a threat going forward, and that was shown today in this Community Shield game.
Yeah, is it a case of... We talk a lot on this podcast about team cycles and how that eventually comes to an end, and why it's important. You have to improve your squad while you're on top. It's vital that you win the league. You go one better, you go and buy a player or two, just keep that squad fresh, keep on improving it, keep the challenge inside the squad alive. Liverpool haven't done that for about 2 years now. And that's why.
Yeah,
and last year, obviously they won the league and they won it hands down, the best team in the league. You got to put your hands up and admit that. And the year before they ran City so close with, I think it was 97 points they ended up on. But that is a league-winning team without winning the league. So you don't have to improve on that again, which they didn't do. This is now almost 2 years of kind of staying at that. They were at the same level for 2 years without improving. And eventually someone's going to figure you out in those 2 years.
Yeah, and it's going to catch up with you because you need to inject fresh blood that challenges the already cemented first 11, because Sir Alex Ferguson was a master of doing it at Manchester United. I remember when we signed Juan Sebastian Veron from Lazio for 28.4 million in 2001, and he turned up at training and was like, alright, half decent player. And I remember Paul Scholes said a lot that when Veron came, it was a case of, alright, we've got to pick our game up here so we can get back, stay in this team or get back in the first 11 at United. And I think with Liverpool this season in particular, a lot of those players are rested on the laurels. And is it because Jordan Henderson isn't in that midfield and adding that fire and digging people out on the field so then they keep the performance levels up? Or is it like you say, they've hit the end of the cycle, they're getting worked out by the majority of teams, and when a team defends properly, they can't do anything. You saw it in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid. Watford did it, Chelsea did it in the FA Cup, and today Arsenal have done it again. Serious questions are going to emerge for Jurgen Klopp if he's not careful, especially if they don't do any business up until the end of the transfer window.
Is there then also a problem, I was looking at the bench of the two teams now, of squad depth for Liverpool? We always go on about how Manchester City's squad depth is just one of the deepest squads I think we've ever seen. The quality coming off the bench is fantastic.
Chelsea's squad depth is massive after the window they've had.
Especially now. And then you look at the substitutions Liverpool brought on today. I know Takumi Minamino's finally scored. I think it was his first goal for Liverpool. Can't say I've been following his career all too closely. But then the likes of Naby Keita came on. He didn't exactly impress me. And hasn't done since he came in. Ryan Brewster obviously missed the penalty. I know he's a youngster, but he's been out on loan at Swansea and he missed the penalty that ultimately won it for Arsenal. Curtis Jones, I know they kind of blood these young players like Curtis Jones, and he's looked good every time he's come on.
Yeah, I think he'll be a special player for Liverpool Football Club. He's got that figure about him, that arrogance, that player who's willing to step up to the mantle that you'd expect with Scouse lads coming through the system at Liverpool. And he reminds me that he's got that bit between his teeth that Liverpool haven't had from a player within the club since Steven Gerrard left. And granted, I can't stand these lot at all, but you've got to notice quality young players when you see them.
Yeah, but other than that, there's kind of, you're looking at that bench and thinking, all right, okay, who's coming on and changing the game? And I know there's talk and it winds you up to no end on BT Sport. They talk about people like Thiago coming in for Liverpool. But
I'll be honest with you, Aidan, and I don't know about the listeners, but I'm convinced that racket at BT Sport have got a lot of money riding on him joining them. It's like in the Champions League final, it's pretty close between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern Munich, and all Darren Fletcher can do on commentary is bang on about how Thiago's already signed for the Rags, and it's like, come on, give us a break. And I know there's this slanted bias in favour of Liverpool throughout the sports media in the UK, but come on, it's a Champions League final, you don't have to bring them lot into it. And then again today, Ian Dark, who's on commentary for BT, Thiago Alcantara is on the verge of signing for Liverpool. I watched him speak with Hansi Flick after the Champions League final, and it was like, yeah, I'll have a rethink here about what's happening in my career because I'm liking what's going on with this team at Brighton, particularly given they're going to add Leroy Sané into an already phenomenal team. I really don't like this, and I fell foul of it this week myself over transfers, of the media, be it Sky Sports or BT, pushing the narrative about players. It's really, really strange, and the one that struck me the most was Ainsley Maitland-Niles today.
Well,
Sky Sports have said he's already joined Wolves, and then he comes on in the Community Shield and has an absolute stormer.
You told me you read it on Sky that Rob
Holding. It was on the yellow ticket tape on the bottom.
To Newcastle and Maitland-Niles at Wolves, and about 15 minutes in, I went, hang on. I'm pretty certain number 16 is Rob Holding.
Yeah.
So it would appear that everybody who has in fact left Arsenal has not left Arsenal at all.
And I feel completely lost, because who can you trust on transfers now? I know you've got Fabrizio Romano on Twitter who's saying Kai Havertz has done this, has done that's done, and has got a pretty good track record. But my foundation for transfer rumours was always, if it appears on a Sky Sports yellow ticker tape at the bottom, then it's happening. Whereas they're being found out as that they're lying just like the rest of them to get clicks. Which, what do you do? Do I sit there and watch the FIFA transfer matching system all day so I know what's going on?
You just got to wait for nothing's confirmed these days until you see that picture of them holding a shirt. In fact, it's not even that anymore, is it? Long gone.
You can Photoshop it now.
No, well, no. Okay, that's. Yeah, but I was gonna say, long gone are the days of just putting on a t-shirt, putting on the team kit over your suit, and holding up a scarf in the stands. We've got to have skydiving videos these days, but
yeah, Alexis Sanchez playing the piano. How well did that work out, Man United?
I went superbly. That piano was pushed pretty quickly down the hill.
With Alexis on it, or
on it, in it, clinging onto the side. I don't know. He was somewhere. He ended up in Milan, and thank God for that. But back to the Community Shield. It seems really strange that usually you look at this game and you go, okay, right. You kind of get a look at, you would say, almost two of the better teams in the league, and you obviously have done today, and you go, right, how does this set them up for the season? But it seems so strange in that last season hasn't really finished. It's now just this season coming up feels almost like an extension to last season. It doesn't feel that much different because of that 3-month break, and now obviously we're straight back into next season.
Yeah, and there's been no chance for teams to reset if they've been on a bad run, which Liverpool were, to be honest with you, coming off the restart. They've not impressed anybody, and they'd already won the league, so there's nothing you could do, and everything was kind of sewn up, so there was no questions being asked, particularly Liverpool. Arsenal were nowhere near the top four and did their job in terms of winning the FA Cup. And I agree with you 100% that it's just an extension. And whatever form teams had 4 weeks ago, nothing's really changed outside of Stamford Bridge, which looks like a completely revitalised team. And for these two teams in the Community Shield today, you feel better about Arsenal because you can see the progression from what Mikel Arteta's instilling in this team. And I'm so impressed with him as a manager. And today, again, is just further added fuel to the fire for me that he's on to something here with this Arsenal team. And just the massive impact he's had. Not in terms of the results, not in terms of the style of play, because Arsenal still play and carry the same.
Arsenal have always been good going forward. They've always played nice football.
That's what I was saying. But it's the way that the mentality shifted, the steel in this team. Granit Xhaka looks like a proper player. El Neni looked like a good player today when I thought he was finished off in the Turkish Super League with Besiktas. It just feels as though there's something here with Arsenal. Defending properly for the first time ever. Don't crumble under pressure. Can withstand balls into the box. And are not shooting themselves in the foot like they have done for years. How many mistakes have Arsenal players made just under no pressure for the past 4 or 5 seasons? But now under Mikel Arteta, you feel as though everybody's switched on, particularly at the back, because if they make a mistake, they're never getting back in the team.
It's good to see, and I probably go along with that, saying that after watching today's game, I'd be happier as an... Oh no, obviously they won it, so clearly you're going to be happier as an Arsenal fan. But if you were to take the result completely out of the equation, we look at the performance, which is so often the case with the Community Shield, that the performance Arsenal put in and the progression that you've seen from last season, particularly after the restart and now, and kind of carrying that momentum forward because of such a short break. The Arsenal, for me, look like they're in a good position to go and maybe challenge for the top four quite comfortably next season. Whereas for Liverpool, like you said, they won the league so early and kind of took their foot off the gas a little bit. Lost a couple of games here and there after the restart. That for them, again, this short turnaround means they've then got to try and pick back up that title-winning form, which I guess they kind of put down in February, March last year. Well, not last year, last season.
It's weird. It's been that long, it feels like last year.
It's been a long year.
But I understand where
in August.
I understand where you're coming from with this Liverpool performance and team today, and I take it with a caveat that they're missing Trent Alexander-Arnold and they're missing Jordan Henderson, who are arguably the two most influential players. But the worrying thing for me, and I think Jurgen Klopp clocked this, was they were just going sideways all the time. Everything was sideways, and then everybody was looking to Sadio Mane to do something special, like a Lionel Messi would do for Barcelona, or a Cristiano in his pomp at Real Madrid, who could pick the ball up and just do it all on his own. But Mane is not that type of player. I think he's a world-class player, but he's not a player who can disrupt the rhythm of a back four of the opposition all on his own. And I think you saw that today with the half chances he got were quickly smothered by Emiliano Martinez or defended well by Rob Holding or David Luiz. And that had massive alarm bells for Liverpool. And I think you saw that with Klopp because he stormed off straight down the tunnel when he got beat. Granted, he's a bit of a petulant individual at times, and he'll throw his toys out the pram if VAR haven't given him a decision. But I think he, being the football man he is, and I can have digs at him being a United fan, but you've got to give him credit for the massive turnaround he's had at Anfield and how well he understands football and how well he can implement has implemented such an aggressive and prominent team that has swept all before it for 2 years. But today they looked like a team that was old, looked leggy, they looked devoid of confidence, which is mad to say. And the fact they were going sideways always, to me, signals as major trouble in a team. And there's so many instances of this throughout the history of the Premier League when a team's been on top, winning titles, and then once they start going sideways, it all falls apart. And I'm so interested now in this first month. If Liverpool get one or two bad or off-colour results, and say they're 4 or 5 points off the top of the league come the middle of October, I think you'll see some serious alarm bells going off at Anfield.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. Obviously, with the season kicking off in 2 weeks, and they've, on the face of it, you think coming up against a newly promoted side, they've got a nice easy start. But
it's Leeds United.
It's Leeds United, so they're not going to get an easy run at it. They're going to be eager to impress on their return to the Premier League. It's been so long. I know it's at Anfield, so I think you probably say you expect the Liverpool win, but I guess on that one again, with it being so early in the season, the performance I think will be key there. Whether they win or not, it's how they perform in that game. I think you'll be looking at as kind of a bit of a precursor to maybe how their season's going to go, and I think that's what makes that game so intriguing on the first game of the season.
Yeah, see, I think Liverpool couldn't have asked for a worse first fixture, because Leeds United have been waiting for this for 15 years and they're baying for Premier League football, particularly the fans and the players in that club, because they've been without it for so long. So they're going to be well up for it at Anfield. Liverpool, they can catch them cold. Leeds could catch Liverpool cold, is the way I'm saying it. And that could set a precedent of events off at Anfield. But for Leeds United, going to Anfield, they've nothing to lose. It's a free hit. And this game reminds me of when Burnley came into the Premier League. United were European champions and ended up losing the second game of the season 1-0 to a Robbie Blake goal at Turf Moor. And I just get them vibes off this game. Really do. And it wouldn't surprise me if it ends up 2-1 Leeds.
Just to finish off then, of course, before we actually get to the Premier League kicking off in 2 weeks.
Do we have to talk about international football because it's the most stupid thing ever?
Well, this is what we're going to talk about. Why on earth have we got the Community Shield now and then a 2-week international break before the season starts? You've got the smallest pre-season you can imagine. I know it's because the season's only finished a week ago, or 3 weeks ago, I guess, if you were in Europe. But why have we cut pre-season in half to go and play Nations League football?
Precisely the week leading into the start of a new Premier League season. And also, I'd say less of it was England against Italy for all the marbles qualifying for the World Cup. But we're playing Nations League games against Iceland and Denmark.
Well, some of us are anyway, What on earth happened to this England team? It's kind of, they're slowly dropping out one by one for varying reasons.
I just can't understand it. I can't understand UEFA's thinking. It's been such a condensed period, so many matches, so many days, and then you've got this Champions League Festival of Football where you've had 4 top-class games over such a short period, and now you're asking these players to turn it around, play international football, which is difficult. You have many accounts from players who say it's so difficult to get up for international football, be fit enough for international football, and adapt to playing with different players that you don't play with at your club side. And particularly in pre-season, this such pivotal time in pre-season, right before the eve of a new campaign, it's really silly from UEFA in terms of a scheduling point of view. I know they've got contracts to fulfil, financial gain to be had, and issues around getting enough international games in to fulfil all their overheads. But there's got to be a better way of doing it. Surely you could have had 3 games in October and 3 games in November instead of having England play a nonsensical friendly at the end of October against Wales. No, it's poor planning more than anything for me. And I think you'll see the impact of it with issues in terms of injuries and in terms of poor performances from teams in the first couple of weeks of the season.
Yeah, it seems a very, very strange place to put it. I'd have thought you'd at least get the season underway first, allow the teams to have all of this short pre-season, which is getting rapidly shorter given we've had international football getting away. You've got rising number of coronavirus cases amongst Premier League players, and then players come back on holiday and quarantining, and it's all just kind of stacking up that these international football games are kind of worse and worse placed by the day, it seems.
And I also don't understand why they're continuing with the Nations League this year. You've pushed the Euros because of what's happened. You're trying to buy time and buy days to schedule all the games into at club level. Why not just park the Nations League for a year? Have an international break in March where you can have your showpiece friendlies for the teams who've already qualified for the Euros, and then that enables you to get your playoff games done. And then it gives people a bit of a breather, do you know what I mean? Where you can have a week off in October, you can have a week off in November. And it kind of removes that problem of fatigue and that problem, which I think you're going to see this season, of teams having a lorry load of injuries. Because that's my biggest worry, particularly as a United fan, because these jokers don't look to be putting their hands in their pockets to get any squad depth at Old Trafford. And I think you'll see that with a lot of other teams, and that's why I'm so impressed with what Chelsea have done, because they've recognised, all right, we need to infuse quality into this team, but let's get 5, 6, 7 players that we know we can rotate and there's not going to be a drop-off. And there's a lot of big teams, particularly in the Premier League and in La Liga, who once they start picking up injuries through fatigue or accumulation of games, the drop-off to the squad players is absolutely massive. And I think that's where you see strange results start popping up.
Yeah, it's all shaping up though to be quite an interesting season. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to get it to get started.
And obviously, haven't got long to wait now. 2 weeks to go, but that'll do it for today, I think. We'll be back on Wednesday with regular schedules. We've had 3 podcasts this week as opposed to the usual 2, but we'll be back on Wednesday regular scheduling. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Lewis.
Yeah, just a shout out PSA. We've got our Patreon up and going now, so that's available for anybody who'd like to support us. We've got the MatchDay Review Extra Time Patreon exclusive podcast coming out next week, which It'll be more evergreen content. It's looking at different areas of football. Next week's going to be the UEFA Cup Winners' Cup, having a delve into that because it'll be interesting. And just check us out on all the other usual social media channels. Twitter at MatchDay_review, the website MatchdayReview.com, and we're gearing up for a massive season on the podcast and also a massive season in terms of Premier League and Champions League football. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, any support you could give us would be massively appreciated. We'll be back on Wednesday. We hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.